Senator, welcome back to the program here. Let's start wide. Your Republican opponent, Don Huffines, is already trying to frame this race as conservatives versus Austin liberals. How do you compete statewide without getting boxed into that stereotype?
Well, actually, I've often said on the floor of the state Senate that I have become the most conservative member of the Texas Senate because this one party rule has become such a spendthrift and so has normalized a corruption that is costing taxpayers money. So that is, it's curious to hear Mr. Huffines calling himself a watchdog when he has no intention of being a watchdog over this one party rule at all. So we're going to get that word out to everybody all across the state of Texas that they have a real choice in this race. They can either go with an apologist who continues the work of the rich and powerful so that they can stay rich and powerful on your dime, or we can break this one party rule and return the state of Texas to hardworking Texans.
You say your campaign is about, turning the comptroller's office into an aggressive taxpayer watchdog to audit spending, make sure that the money is being used wisely and efficiently. But I'm curious what you think about economic incentives to get companies to move and to relocate. A lot of people say that's throwing away taxpayer dollars at a time when our property taxes are sky high.
Well, I have actually, as a chief executive over a large county, I have negotiated economic development deals and preferential tax treatment. I don't love them and generally don't support them at the local level, but I actually do support locals in looking at them and making their own determination. The comptroller's office should be a watchdog over that sort of activity to help local governments when they're frankly outgunned by massive corporations coming in and demanding tax breaks. The comptroller's office should be able to stand behind local governments and say whether it's a good deal or a bad deal. And if it's a bad deal, help the locals negotiate a better one or tell the corporate entity, no, you're not getting preferential treatment. You're more than happy to move here if you want, but we're not going to give you a tax break to do it.
We've heard you criticize political cronyism and no bid contracts. What are the specific contracts that you would look into if elected on day one?
On day one, I would do an assessment of all of the no bid contracts that came in under emergency orders that have been renewed by the governor's office every single month for the last 6 years. We've seen a fourfold increase in no bid contracts. We need to take a look at every single one of them to see how much money we lost in failing to compete those contracts, and also what kind of business is not being grown in the state because only certain businesses are getting those state contracts. State contracts are a great way to build our locally grown talent pipeline in the state of Texas. When you give no bid contracts to mostly national and even international corporations, that's state money going out the door, never to return to the people of the state of Texas.
School vouchers just been awarded to more than 96,000 Texas school children. You promise an audit of this program if you are elected. What do you think you would find?
What I think we will find, and frankly what was projected even at the time we were debating this bill on the floor, was that vouchers would go to predominantly white and well-off families that already had their children in private school. Although the bill was sold as a way for low-income families who had disabled children to have a choice, I think that the demography ultimately will show that that's not who is getting this benefit. We are actually just raking money out of the public school system and moving it over to the private school system, subsidizing people who already send their children to private school.
I've heard Republicans say, listen, Democrats oppose vouchers, and now they're trying to oversee vouchers after they lost the legislative fight. Is this audit really about accountability, or is it about getting even in some sorts?
No, it's not at all about getting even. Listen, the comptroller's office is under my watch. The comptroller's office would follow the law and follow the money, irrespective of where that evidence leads. It's not a Republican or a Democrat thing to honestly tell the people of Texas and their elected representatives where their money is going and who is benefiting most, least, and not at all from those investments. That's not a party thing. The comptroller's office does not work for a party, does not work for a specific leader. The comptroller's office works for the people of the state of Texas.
I've heard you mention the different places you would audit in the state budget, but Operation Lone Star, the governor's border security operation, has spent $11 billion over the past 5 or 6 years here. I haven't heard you say much about that. Would that be a priority for you at all to look at where that money has gone?
It would. Whenever you're looking at trend analysis of budgets, you look for blips, you look for outliers, you look for places where we've made a tremendous outlay to see whether you're actually getting something back for it. And at $11 billion, this is a pretty unprecedented amount of money dumped into what is essentially a federal matter. So, for instance, we've spent about $3 billion of that $11 billion on border barriers. The 70 miles of Texas border wall, the Texas portion, is estimated to have cost $25 million per mile and have an additional annual cost of $500,000 per mile for maintenance and operation. For that kind of money, we could have paid the tuition for every single Texas young adult who's in a Texas public school for 3 years.
Your Republican opponent has also said he wants to doge Texas government. I know you probably heard him say that too, but are there agencies or programs that you would consider uh, cutting or consolidating at the least?
That my opponent fundamentally misunderstands what the role of the comptroller's office is. An audit is about transparency and providing good, honest data for legislators to decide where they want to invest. So the comptroller's office does not cut other state agencies. The comptroller's office doesn't make budget decisions. The comptroller's office does honest audits and trusted projections on where we need to be investing our money so that the legislature can make informed decisions. It's the legislature's role to cut budgets. It's the legislature's role to cut divisions of government. But I will certainly use the audit power of the office to inform the legislature of where we have overinvested, where we have underinvested, and what the effects are for everyday Texans.
Where do you think we've overinvested and underinvested? Obviously, public education is something you've talked about underinvesting in, but where are we overinvested?
I think we're clearly overinvested in border security, which is, again, a federal matter that we have stepped into. I think it's quite obvious that we were overinvested there. We're certainly underinvested in public education. We're underinvested in healthcare with the largest uninsured population in the entire United States. And we're underinvested in water infrastructure all across the state of Texas. Urban areas and rural areas are deeply concerned about the water crisis. My opponent says there is no water crisis, that it's a failure of local leadership. I find that astounding. My opponent also says he's not going to doge state government. He's not going to look at what's happening in the governor's office or in the lieutenant governor's office or in the attorney general's office. He wants to doge local government, which in many instances is the only government in the state of Texas that's still delivering services to the people of Texas.
I may have not said all the words correctly in that question, but as far as recommending cutting or consolidating different agencies to lawmakers, let me ask that again. Then, your Republican opponent has said he wants to doge different departments in the state, or at least take a look at potentially finding ways to find efficiencies. Are there agencies or programs in the state that you would recommend to lawmakers that should be cut or consolidated?
I would certainly want to take a look at Health and Human Services to see where we could rearrange there and make sure that we have deeper investments. Because, for instance, Health and Human Services recommended that we not pull down Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program because they were overwhelmed and weren't able to distribute it. Those are poor children over the summer who didn't get food assistance because Health and Human Services said they didn't have the capacity. Now, conversely, we also ought to take a look at the Department of Public Safety, which has essentially absorbed the $11 billion of border security money. We didn't cut that $11 billion after the federal government stepped in more robustly. We simply moved it sideways into the Department of Public Services. So we need to take a look at that. Also, foster care is deeply underinvested. And I think people generally will be surprised to find that the state of Texas, although it lends money and often funnels federal money to water projects, it doesn't actually invest state money in water infrastructure. That's mostly local property tax and bond revenue. So we have a lot
Last
to
question.
look at. with regard to investments in the state of Texas. Also, to your point, with regard to what could be cut at the state, the state of Texas consistently ranks in the bottom 10 for per capita spending on Texans. We are the second wealthiest state in the nation, and yet we consistently rank in the bottom 10 of investments in Texans. So actually, our state government is pretty starved. It's over relying on local property taxing entities and then blaming them for delivering services. We've got to figure out another way. People are overburdened with property taxes, and we can't raise the sales tax anymore without further seriously hurting Texans. So we've got to look at other revenue sources in the state of Texas, things like a legalized and regulated cannabis industry.
Casino gambling? Would that be on the
That
table?
is also something that should be looked at with regard to an appropriately regulated industry that could generate significant state revenues to assist with the things that a growing and a growing and robust state really need. We need our courts, we need our roads, we need our schools, we need hospitals. We're deeply underinvested in healthcare.
And final question here for you. It's a long time between now and November. What should we expect over the summer from your campaign?
Over the summer, you're going to see us everywhere. We were just in Dallas earlier this morning. We're now in Waco. We're going down to Killeen later on this evening. Then we'll be back in Austin. Then I go out to Bryan College Station. We're going to Gillespie County. We're going to be everywhere. The entire slate is going to be everywhere. And I want to assure people that the state of Texas making investments in Texans, that is a way for us to save money. If we make appropriate investments, we will not have to spend more in responding to extreme weather, to drought, to a failure of water systems, to pandemics and healthcare emergencies. We have hospitals in parts of Texas that don't even offer labor and delivery services anymore. The kind of risk that every Texan is taking on because the state is failing to govern and provide an infrastructure on which we can hang our talents, this is costing us real money.
Senator, thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
I really appreciate you making the time.